Hey there, hot enough for you? Ah, ha, ha, ha. It's Wednesday, it's too hot. Hi, everybody. My name is Jimmy. I went to the comic shop. Picks of the week. We got a little bump at our effects budget. Let's see here. So, I don't think this was, certainly wasn't conscious on my part, but, you know, since late, it seems like the last couple of weeks, I've only been talking about stuff that I've either already talked about or am not super stoked on. Not a lot of new titles, but this week, I ended up getting 3 new titles that I have not read before because these are the first issues of each. So that would make the most sense, wouldn't it? First up, we have Shadow Service #1 from Vault Comics. You know as much as I do. Well, actually, so this wasn't even on my list, but at my shop, as I'm sure at yours, they have a weekly, like, you know, staff pick or a shop pick, and this was this week's for Galaxy of Comics in beautiful Van Nuys, California. I'm sorry, my Pepto-Bismol is in the way. I'm just going to move that. Getting old is not for the weak. And how did he pitch it to me? He said it was like Jessica Jones meets Illyana Rasputin from The New Mutants. And I flipped through it, and it looked good. I don't even know who the creative team is on it. No, I'm thinking about it. Yep, all people I have never heard of. Vault Comics, I want to say I've bought something from before. I don't know. But it looks good. It's a pretty cover. I'm getting a phone call from my friend Ryan, which I can't... Ryan, I'm right in the middle of this. I need to talk to that guy. All right. Next up, this actually came out last week. This is Big Girls... No, it was a good catch. Big Girls #1 from Image Comics. This is written and drawn by Jason Howard, who I know from the another book on Image called Trees, that he is the artist for. So this will be the first time I've read something else that he's drawn, and it's the first time I'll read something new by him. But he's an incredible artist. You know, I tend to kind of lean towards writers. Like if I'm on the fence about a book, but it's, you know, you tell me a writer is attached to it that I like, I'm gonna get it. I guess I do the same with artists too, but I guess what I'm getting at is if the script isn't 1,000,000%, the art will be. And that usually is enough. I'll tell you this, a bad art will ruin a story before a bad script will. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have a great script and terrible art, that's a bad book. If you have terrible script and great art, that's not a bad book. Hi. I'm just... making homespun aphorisms. This is stupid. And then this is the book I think I'm probably most looking forward to. This is Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists, #1 from Scout Comics. Now, first of all, I will always buy a title if it's a complete sentence. That's true for comics. It's true for novels. It's true for nonfiction. I'm reading a book about Vietnam right now called Kill Everything That Moves. And it goes for albums. I love a long title. This is not necessarily like The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. Best movie title of that year. I mean, it was a good movie. It just was kind of long, like the title. But, so I don't know. I thought I heard of this because writer Al Ewing tweeted about it. But now I honestly don't know. It's another book, a creative team that I'm not at all... I don't even recognize any of these names. Well, Eric Palicki on the script, that does sound a little bit familiar. The elevator pitch, though, for this in the ads that I saw was Lovecraft meets Leone, and I stopped reading. I said, okay, I don't want to know any more than that. Take my money. And so they did. And that's why they are one of the picks of the week. Oh, we might get out of here in a decent hour. Picks of last week. I just want to take a half an hour to do this every time. I do have to call Ryan back. Ryan, I'm going to call you back. He can't see me. This is not live. So I didn't get as much reading done this week on Forge, but I did read the picks of the week from last week. First up, we had Devil's Highway #1 and 2 from AWA, written by Benjamin Percy, who's quickly becoming a favorite of mine. I believe last week I called this a Southern noir, and it's actually more of a Midwestern noir. Big difference, but it's because it all takes place in like Minnesota and Wisconsin, which is where Percy is from, and that makes sense. I mean, the Coen brothers already have kind of put that area on the map as far as crime fiction goes, but that doesn't mean there's not another million. I mean, that show that the Coen brothers have zero to do with, right? It's still very good crime fiction. It's a very good show, period. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. I haven't watched past season 2. And as good as season 1 was, you don't even need to watch that, dude. Season 2 of Fargo, some of the best standalone television I've ever seen. That's a little extra. You know, I'm not even going to charge you for that. And then I also read, this week, I read Scream, Curse of Carnage, Volume 1. This is issues 1 through 6. I was under the distinct impression that it was a limited series, and it feels like it has an ending, but it also feels like they're leaving it open-ended. That's not a surprise, because, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before, miniseries, limited series used to be a thing. It was like a special, 4-issue limited series, and they really, you know, ramped it up, especially in the 80s when they were really becoming a thing, because then dorks like me would go, oh, it's limited! So, we would, you know, I certainly would. It worked on me, and it still works on me. I don't have any trouble with it. But they don't really do that anymore. There are still definitely limited series put out by the big two, but usually only in conjunction with whatever big-ass crossover they're doing. Most of the time, certainly more often than not, Marvel and DC publish books with the intent that they will go until they can't go anymore. You know, which has been their idea since the Fantastic Four, which is still going. And I kind of respect that a little bit. It kind of elevates comic books beyond that ghetto, which I've never liked that term for comic books of all things. But comic books are a sort of bastardized, ghettoized, you know, it's a pop culture thing. It's not real art, which is, you know, obviously untrue. Why am I? Oh, right. So in the 80s when they would do limited series like that, the marketing was behind it to try to foist it on to unsuspecting or very much suspecting dorks. And then if it was popular enough, they would give it its own title. That's how Wolverine got his own title. He had a miniseries first. The Punisher. Well, the Punisher had it. Well, obviously the Wolverine. They had, you know, those characters have obviously appeared in other books before they got their own titles. It does seem weird, though, right? Like, even to me now, it seems weird that Wolverine wouldn't just immediately have his own title. But I also have to remember that I've loved Wolverine for 30-some years, but, you know, I'm fortunately not exemplary of everybody. This is all to say that this book was fine. I mean, I'm glad I got it. It's only 18, which actually... I mean, again, I could probably buy the back issues for that much, right? Well, actually, if they're $4 a pop, I can't. Alright, that's a good price point, then. These regular single issues are too expensive. And like I said, the main reason I bought it was because Chris Mooneyham drew it, but also Gary Brown draws a few pages here and there. And he's really good, too. They have very similar styles, which I think was intentional, which is kind of a drag. Like, sometimes they'll have two different artists on a book because one will draw, like, flashback sequences or dream sequences, or you know what I mean? Or something like, even like when Jeff Lemire wrote Moon Knight, he'd had 4 different artists, one for each personality that Moon Knight had. This felt more like Mooneyham just needed some help, so they hired Gary Brown to do some pages, which... that's comics for you. It doesn't happen as often, and I've mentioned this before too, and it kind of ties into what I'm saying. Comic books being on a monthly schedule is outmoded in an old way of thinking. I'm fine with keeping it. Don't get me wrong. But it doesn't need to be that way. And most comics, Marvel and DC are probably the only publishers that publish titles monthly without a break. Image and Dark Horse and a lot of these other bigger independent publishers do it in seasons. Like I was talking about Kaiju Max a few weeks ago. I don't like seasons. I like monthly books. But I'm also one of the very rare comic book nerds around my, you know, above a certain age that don't want everything to stay exactly the same. Or rather, I do want things to stay the same as from when I was a kid, but I'm also not going to throw a fit if they don't. Perfect. Okay, good. I'm glad I got that. And in just about 10 minutes, hot diggity damn. Picks of last week. Ba-da, ba-da, ba-da. All right. So, that's it. I mean, I'm going to try and get some more reading in this weekend, but I mean, geez Louise. I'm more or less back to work full time, which is good. And, I got the boy with me for the next couple of weeks, so that's probably going to eat into some of my reading time. But we're still going to be quarantined, so I'm still going to have something. Oh, you're all relieved? Okay, good. That's about it then for everybody. That's about it for everybody. See you next week. Ba-da-ba-dee-dee-dee-doo. Oh, have you been doing this whole time?